Hello and welcome to TCBC Ride Leader Training. This training series will be a series of videos designed to introduce ride leaders to the ride stats and ride calendar software and how they can use it in administering their rides throughout the season. This will be the only training video in which we'll actually be using slides. All of the rest of the videos will be actual demos of the software. However, before you skip ahead to those, we're going to be covering some important concepts that will help make the other videos easier to comprehend and understand. So I encourage you to see this one through. And with that being said, let's go ahead and get started. So what goes into a TCBC ride from a ride stats perspective? Well, the first thing that a new ride leader is going to need to do is they're going to need to create a new event in ride stats. And we're going to talk about events and rides because it's important to understand what they are and the differentiation between the two in just a moment. But we're going to create an event in ride stats, and then that event is going to be reviewed and approved by the scheduling team. Once that event is approved, you can then go and schedule rides based off of that event. And once you schedule a ride, it's immediately going to be on the TCBC calendar, and now all you have to do is wait for the best part, which is the ride itself. Once that ride is completed, you're going to go back to the ride stats software and enter the completed ride information and the mileage of all of the individuals who were on your ride. And at that point, the ride is essentially over from an administrative perspective. However, we do ask you to hang on to your ride sheet until the end of the season. Now, the ride sheet is what all members and guests are going to sign into before the ride starts, and it is the administrative or the record of the ride, or the official record of the ride. So if there is the unfortunate incident that there's an accident or something occurs on the ride and we need to refer back to that ride sheet, we do ask that you hang on to it until the end of the season. So let's talk about events and rides and what it means from the ride stats software's perspective. So an event is going to contain all of the common elements of your ride. So you may want to create a ride that takes place every weekend or every other weekend. So that would be a common element of an event. It could be where the ride is starting. It could be a particular time of day, an evening ride, a day ride, a night ride perhaps. So it's essentially your template of what each occurrence of the ride should always have in it. So that template, the description, is a great place to save you a lot of time in the future, because if you have the common occurrences of that event and you write a good description, it not only gives the riders that you know are going to show up, but possibly the riders that you don't know, and they can understand what they're getting into and what your ride is going to be like. So it's really important to get a good event description and then custom tailor it when we get to the ride itself. So a ride is an individual occurrence of the event that you created. So it's going to contain now the specifics of that individual occurrence. So it's going to have a specific date. It's going to have a specific time. It's going to have a specific mileage. So an easy way to think of the difference between the two is think about the Tour de France. It's an event. It takes place over a series of days, over a series, over a known area, but a stage would be an example of a ride. It has the specific mileage, altitude, mountains, roads that the ride is actually going to take place versus the overall idea of the event, which is the tour itself. So a more specific model for TCBC would be is if I created an event to do a Monday night ride to Stillwater, I could have the common elements such as this is what the ride is about. We're going to go over the Gateway Trail to Stillwater, have a quick coffee, come back. These are the common elements of the ride, where it starts, about what the mileage is going to be, about what the terrain is going to be. But now, once that event is approved, now I can schedule that ride on 5/11 or whatever Monday night I decide to now schedule this event to take place. And that scheduling of the event is now my ride. So what does that mean? Let's get further into it. Should I just have one event for the whole season? Well, The answer is generally no. And when we say no, is that we don't want to have a catch-all event that takes place where it's 1 to 100 miles, it's any day of the week, it's any time of the day. That event is going to get returned to you, and we're going to ask for more specifics. However, you could be a ride leader that does many, many rides off of a few events created in the system, because if I decide I'm going to do a Monday night ride every week and I'm going to do a Friday night dinner ride every week, over the course of the summer I might have 30 individual occurrences of each over the course of a season. So you don't need to have an event for every ride that you're doing, but we do encourage you to create a series of rides. So when we're creating a series of rides, consistency is key. It's really hard for a ride leader to have a successful one-off ride. It really is. Like anything, the more that you do a ride, the more that you cover an area, you learn the roads, and you generally have a more successful experience for everybody that comes on that ride. But it's hard to do it all the time. So team up with other ride leaders when you're creating an event. So one of the commonalities that you can also have in an event is scheduling multiple ride leaders that could do that event or schedule that event for that ride. So many hands here make light work. Have many ride leaders that could potentially do that event, and you probably have a better chance of having a more consistent showing of more riders showing up to the rides that you're leading. And then, of course, as we said, find the common ground. A good event is going to have similarities in it. It's going to be a sales pitch for the people who are coming to your ride. And doing it consistently, having a common experience for the riders that are going to show up, generally leads to more successful overall rides and more success within the club itself. So, the best way now to continue is let's go ahead and move into the next video, and we'll actually get in, create some events, create some rides, and show you how this all comes together.